high remuneration is one of the more objective categories in the extraordinary ability visas on the surface, but it's actually more nuanced than it looks because it's not just about having a high salary, but comparing it to the right benchmark. So how does that work?
So for high salary, basically you have to be earning the top 10% of your profession. So what we do is we take your job title. If you're earning your money in the United States, we look at the Department of Labor and Department of Labor's benchmarks, and we make sure that you're in the 90th percentile or the top 10% of your profession. If it's for 01, then that's a little, it can be slightly lower than that, but we would like to always stay within that 90th percentile.
So how do you choose the right benchmark? Because it's not always that the Department of Labor has every single profession listed out. So sometimes there's a bit of art, right? On how do you choose?
Yeah, I mean, usually we look at the, your job duties, the job title, and then Department of Labor, then they have the website Career One Stop. Where we can also look at the benchmarks there, and also where you are actually located, your local market, and in all that you have to be above the 90th percentile, basically nationally and locally. So usually with people that work in or live and work in California, if they make a high salary there, that will satisfy both the local and national standard. If you live somewhere there, there might be a little bit of discrepancy there, but you always have to be in the 90th percentile in both.
Got it. What about if it's a job outside of the US and you don't have Career One Stop or Department of Labor?
Yeah, so if it's outside the United States, it could be a little bit more challenging because not every single country, has these benchmarks or the government has that information. So we would look into professional groups like HR groups or others that produce these reports on an annual basis, and then we'll take a look into that and see whether you're in the 90th percentile. Sometimes it might make sense to hire a local economist to actually crunch the numbers for us and basically do an expert letter showing that you are, or proving that you are in the 90th percentile based on their methodology and whatever it's custom for that particular country.
Got it. So let's say I'm a marketing manager. Should I compare myself to marketing professionals, to marketing manager professionals? Like, what's the right benchmark? How do I think about that?
So you should compare yourself to a marketing manager. So all the marketing managers in your field, that's your benchmark.
So what this means is if I'm a marketing manager in Argentina, I just need to compare myself to salaries in Argentina. It doesn't matter whether they are lower than the US or anything.
Yeah, that is correct. So if you're a marketing manager in Argentina, you have to compare yourself to all marketing managers in Argentina. You don't have to compare to that salary to a US salary. And that applies to every other country.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, I have a few questions for you. So first one is equity. Okay. Founders don't pay themselves much, generally speaking, and they rather get equity. So can you use that to claim high salary?
We had success with using that for the 01, using equity for the 01. For the EB-1, generally speaking, we have to be careful. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And because of the uncertainty, I would prefer not to use it for EB-1. I would prefer to establish high salary with your base salary and bonus. And then if you have equity, of course, we can always add that to the argument. But yeah, I would prefer to have established the high salary just based on
you can
cash.
go for it, but it's not.
You can go for it, but you have to know the risks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What about RSUs, right? That they're very common in the tech scene.
Yeah, RSUs is another one where we have to be careful with it. Generally, it's not part of the regulation. Again, I would prefer to establish high salary with your base and your bonus, and then we can add the RSU to the argument as well. Also, depending on how it's classified on your W-2. So each company has their own classifications. And then, I have done it a few times, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Got it. And nowadays with remote work, right? Because the benchmarks, I'm working in Argentina, but I'm getting paid by a company in the US. Like, how do I compare that?
Yeah, so that's another sort of gray area of things. Welcome to EB-1. Yeah. Again, I mean, because, you can get a pushback because technically you're paid, in the United States, or, sometimes people have accounts here, you're paid in the United States, but you're working in Argentina. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of establishing high salary based on this scenario. Can you try? Of course you can. But again, you have to assess the risks.
Yeah, it's one of those things that maybe O1 is a bit more flexible.
Yeah, maybe O1 will be a little bit more flexible, but with the EB-1, probably it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be your strongest argument.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, like, what's the documentation you need for this?
So generally, we want to have obviously your pay stubs, pay slips, at least for the last 6 months. We want to sometimes we include W-2, but obviously if you got a promotion, after the W-2 was issued, that's not gonna make much sense. But we still want to include it. Sometimes offer letter, if the offer letter really spells out how much you pay and it's current, so not an offer letter from 5 years ago. And I usually request also bank statements just to see that the money actually hit your bank account.
Got it. And this is also for future, right? It's not just for past. Like you
Correct.
can claim this with a job offer, even for the new job you're getting.
For the new job, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So remember, when you're going for high salary, it's not just about how much you make, but where and what's the benchmark you're comparing to.